So I have finished all 14 ribs on the upper wing, and the 6 ribs on the lower wing, they're partial ribs, as you can see, and there's 3 on each side. They go in front of the ailerons. So I'm done with the jig. The jig was used to build the ribs that have all these trusses and gussets all over. Done with that. And now I've got remaining the 2 butt ribs on the upper wings, 2 butt ribs on the lower wings, and the 4, I'm not sure they're called butt ribs, but the ribs that cap each end of the ailerons. So the ribs that go on each end of each of the ailerons. And you start out with 1/16 inch plywood. I cut out these openings. I just used a rib like this. I used one of the upper wing ribs to trace out the whole thing. Then I used the lower wing rib to trace the spar openings. And it takes some fiddling anyway when you cut them out, so it doesn't, you want them to be approximately in the right place. But once you start cutting, and I did that with a chisel, you need to fiddle with it to get it to fit over the spars. And I'll discuss how I got these lined up a little bit more in just a minute here. And then I just took a Forstner drill bit, I think it's maybe 3/4 of an inch, drilled holes in these 4 corners, took a jigsaw, cut between them. And that's probably the most important part to make this easy, is to be careful as you cut to get it lined up nice and even with this curve. Otherwise the material, it'll stick out a little bit here, and you'll just need to use a chisel or sandpaper to fiddle with it. So then I would use some sandpaper to smooth this out and get where I didn't have this part smooth that I was talking about between this line and the corner. I'd have to fiddle with that a little bit. And I also threw a 3/4 inch spindle, I guess you'd call it, onto the oscillating belt sander. You can take the belt off and just have a spindle, and that was just to smooth these corners out. And I just kind of drew these by hand. I think I've got about 3/4 of an inch material here, about an inch here, and what's that? Maybe 3/4 of an inch there and here. And then the outside, I would just take that to the oscillating belt sander and eventually get rid of the pencil line that I had traced around it and just compare it with a completed rib that I had built in the jig. So let's see here. So I made 4 of these, got the outline just right by continuously comparing it with the regular rib until it was really close. I was going to say, to get the holes lined up for the spars, what I did is I've got just some scrap spar material. This is an inch thick. It's the front one, and you've got to bevel the top of it to fit the wings. It comes a little bit taller than it needs to be, and that fits right in there. I've got a bigger piece of rear spar, and it fits right in here. And then what I would do is fiddle with this just with a chisel until it fits over just like that. And same with the front one, and it should just drop right on there. It shouldn't bind. If it binds or it pulls one of these pieces of scrap spar, pulls them one way or the other, it means that the holes that you've put in here, these holes, are either too far apart or too close together. So it should just slip right on there without tugging or pushing on these spar pieces. That just tells me that that when I assemble the wing, these spars, or these ribs and these ribs, they will all slide nicely and easily onto the spars, and the wing will have good alignment, and the ribs won't be tugging or pushing or pulling on the spar material. Now, I gotta admit, I feel a little bit annoyed working on these. It's just, I don't know. I guess I'm lacking a little motivation, and I just was procrastinating and just not too excited about making these ribs. But I need to keep chipping away at it. I think I'll have all the ribs done in about a week. I had a friend here over Christmas for several days, and so I haven't gotten anything done, but I'm on schedule for having all the ribs done, I would say, in maybe 2 months and 1 week would be the total. So I'm on track for about 9 weeks to do all the ribs. So I think that's pretty realistic to get all these ribs done, about 9 weeks. So I've got weights on here. And let me show you what I did. So I've got these same 2 pieces of 1/4 by 1/4 inch spruce that the other spars have, 1 brace in the center, and 2 more pieces back here. And that's all that these ribs will have, other than the nose piece and the cap strips. And there's one other piece, but they don't have all the trusses and the gussets and so forth. Just these guys, this one in the center, and these 2. Now, let me find where I drew it. There'll be a big cutout here on all 4 ribs, and the bearings that hold the aileron, that it pivots on, go through here. That obviously doesn't leave much material here and here, just about 1/4 inch, just enough for the cap strips to cover. For that reason, I think, the plans call for this 1/4 inch material that runs along here to rise up and become 3/4 of an inch from about 1.5 inches in front of this rear spar opening. Rise up and be 3/4 of an inch all the way back. And I'm guessing that's simply for the extra reinforcement here, since we're getting rid of so much material there. And the plans say glue the nose rib on, then cut those pieces using 3/4 inch by 1/4 inch spruce, cut it down to 1/4, and after you've glued the nose rib on, apply that material. What I did was the same thing I had done before, which is to glue just 1/4 by 1/4 inch cap strip onto the nose ribs. I don't know if this is worse or better than the instructions, that's just what I did. And I built up this 3/4 inch by just gluing some extra 1/4 by 1/4 material together. I don't think it probably makes a big difference either way. I think theoretically, actually, the glued up stuff might even be stronger than just the plain wood, but I think it'll be just fine either way. And let me show you what I'm talking about. See all these clamps? Let me remove clamps from one of these. So you can see I've got 2 pieces of scrap that I glued up. And then with a piece like this, what I did was I used my oscillating belt sander and sanded this angle on there. But let me remove these clamps and show you what I've ended up with, and this may give you a little better idea what in the world I'm talking about. These clamps are $1 each at Home Depot, and I've got like 30 of them, and it's turning out that I'm using all of them. So I think they're really nice to have. So now I've got this, get rid of that one. I've got this gizmo, this thing glued up like I had before, the nose rib with the 1/4 by 1/4 strips. But now I've got on the rear glued up. So this is 3/4. And this will go on the front. And this will glue this along the perimeter all the way to the rear. And so this slopes up here, and provides this extra rigidity where there will be a big cutout right there for the brackets to go through with the bearings and so forth. And there's a piece of it called a spigot, and it's the thing that has the bearing that holds the aileron to the wing and lets it rotate. So that's pretty much it. So this is, like I said, this is all a little bit annoying, and I'm not really enjoying it that much, but I'm plowing ahead, and there may be better ways to do what I'm doing here, but I think just kind of the brute force method that I'm using will work okay. My plan is, so I took the piece of wood that I used for my jig, you can see all those pieces, and I just cut it down to be a little bit bigger than the rib. And my plan is to lay out what I just showed you on top of this and use those spring clamps all around the edges to hold all of this to this plywood as the epoxy dries. And just put clamps all around the edge to hold this down to this, using that piece of wood to clamp it all to. And if that's not clear, I'll show you that when I get to that point. So that's where I'm at. The end of the rib making is in sight. So when I cut this down, for these ribs, there'll be two different kinds. There'll be two of one and two that are mirror image of those. Because if you've got your aileron right here, you've got one rib on this side and the other one on this side. And this material, this thing that sticks out, faces away from the aileron. So you got one with that thing facing out this way, the other one with that facing this way. When I cut this, I cut it for the rib like that. But as it turns out, what I think I can do, I'll put that close. Well, that'll need to be in the middle, I think, so the clamps can reach on from this side and from this side. And they can reach up to this. They can reach here. In the front, you can see now how this is hanging off. I've just got the nose rib will be epoxied on there, so I can just take a clamp and just put a clamp here and a clamp there, and maybe one reaching in here and over here, and then maybe one over here. It's stiff enough that hopefully having a clamp here and then one up here will hold it down firmly enough. I think that'll work okay. And this is close enough to the edge that those spring clamps will reach there. This is okay if it's right up to the edge. And here again, these spring clamps, you can see, what's that, about a 1.5 inch, 1 3/4 inch throat. So yeah, that'll reach real easily to hold that cap strip on there. So even though this is not perfect, and I should ideally have two of these so that the two ribs will fit on one and the other two would fit on the other more evenly around the whole perimeter, I think this will work okay. So yeah, this was a little bit annoying. I don't know if nailing from the other side would be better. I think that'd be even worse. I think this is just one of those things that's, you've just kind of got to kind of plow your way through and get it done, even though it's kind of annoying and difficult. But I think it's gonna be okay. And then I'll take these and I'll glue this. You can see there's a piece of sheet metal, aluminum sheet metal, that takes this shape. It comes up over the top, it goes back, down, and then back up here, and it just hooks over the leading edge, or the front of the spar. And the aileron fits into that shape. And I'll glue this on the other side of this, and that'll be the last one that aluminum hooks onto. next to the aileron. So the aileron will be on the other side of this piece. So this one will be the right. Well, it could be the outside edge of the right wing or the inside rib for the left wing, either one. But this will go on the left side of it. So that's it. I'll be glad when these are done. Then I'll need to glue gussets on here and these two. I guess there's no gussets back here.